Welcome, Aiboan. So in this lesson, we are going to have a look at a reading paper for book 13, the academic book, right? And we're going to have a look at test 1. Now, before we have a look at the answers and discuss all the answers, I'd like you to download the paper and do the paper. So take 1 hour, time yourself, and answer all 40 questions. So pause the video here and start doing the paper. Right, so I think you would have finished the paper by now. Let's have a look at the answers. Test 1, reading passage 1. Now when you're having a look at these kind of answers, make sure that you check for the spellings properly. Update, environment, captain, films, season, accommodation, blog, false, not given, false, true, not given, true. 4, 6, 1, 5, 8, 3. Then we have E, B, D, A. Again, we have a few words that you need to check on the spelling, okay? Focus, pleasure. Make sure it's S-I-T-Y, right, and not C-I-T-Y. So you have to make sure you've got the proper spelling. Then passage 3, B, C, C, D, A, D, A, E, C, G, B, yes, not given, no, right? So put down your score out of 40, how much you have, and then have a look at your band score. Now, if you're not sure how to calculate your band score, have a look at the video because I have given you the marks, right? And told you if you have a 30 to 32, it means a 7, and I have given you the score, how to calculate the band score. Now, before we start the discussion, I'd like to tell you to either have a hard copy of the paper with you, or you can open up the soft copy on one side of the screen, minimize my video, and then obviously engage and find the answers in the reading paper. I don't have the reading paper put on the screen. The reason is there's really no point because you will not be engaging with the lesson. So when I tell you go to para E, first sentence, second sentence, you would be going through it, underlining, and then actively get involved in the discussion session. Right, passage 1, case study, Tourism New Zealand website. Questions 1 to 7, complete the table below. Choose one word only from the passage for each answer. So, allowed businesses to information regularly, right? Now, based on the question and the particular keywords, we need to find the information about an activity that businesses usually conduct in the database section of the website. In para 2, when referring to the database of tourism services, the author mentions because participating businesses were able to update the details they gave on a regular basis, the information provided remained accurate. Okay, I think it should be a regular basis, right? So when we have a look at the answer, allowed businesses to, we can't say updating information regularly. We will have to say update information regularly. So you know that the answer should fit in grammatically correct as well, right? So the answer is update. Question number 2. Provided a countrywide evaluation of businesses, including their impact on the what? Okay. So, provided a countrywide evaluation of businesses, including their impact on what? Now, looking at the keywords, we find in para 2, Tourism New Zealand organised a scheme whereby organisations appearing on the website underwent an independent evaluation against a set of agreed national standards of quality. As a part of this, the effect of each business on the environment was considered. So, as an effect of this, what happened? Each business's effect on the environment, that was considered, right? So, provided a countrywide evaluation of the business, and what did they have a look at? The impact of the environment. So, impact on the environment should be the answer. Question 3. An interview with a former sports who? It should be a former sports person, right? Interview former sports who? Answer is in para 3. The author speaks of features relating to famous people and places. One of the most popular was an interview with the former New Zealand All Blacks rugby captain. So who was he? A former sports captain. You can write only one word. Most appropriate answer is captain. Question number 4. An interactive tour of various locations used in, right? So, interactive tour, various locations used where? Remember that paragraph 3 refers to famous people and to places and locations. So, we find the answer in the middle of para 3. Another feature that attracted a lot of attention was an interactive journey through a number of locations chosen from the blockbuster films, which had made use of New Zealand's stunning scenery as a backdrop. So the interactive tour of various locations, it was used in films, right? It was used in the blockbuster films, and we can only write one word, therefore the answer is films. Information on driving routes vary depending on the what, okay? So, information on driving routes varied depending on what? Now, here the answer is given at the end of para 3. To make it easier to plan monitoring holidays, the site catalogued the most popular driving routes in the country, highlighting different routes according to the season, indicating distances and times. So it was according to means it was depending on what? The season. So the answer should be season. Now these are quite straightforward ones. You should be getting all of these correct. Question number 6. Travel planner. Included a map showing selected places, details of public transport and local what? So it was a travel planner. It was a map showing selected places and details of public transport and local what? The travel planner is discussed in para 4. Later, a travel plan feature was added, which allowed visitors to click and bookmark places and attractions they were interested in, and then view the results on a map. It offered suggested routes, public transport options between chosen locations. There were also links to accommodation. In the area. In the area means local. So, it gave public transport, right? Transport options. And what else did they give? And means there were also and in the area, local what? Accommodation. So the answer is accommodation. Next one, question number 7. Your words, travelers could send a link to their. So your words, travelers could send a link to their who, right? Or to what? Your words is also referred in para 4. So we go to para 4. The website also had your words section where anyone could submit a blog of their New Zealand travels for possible inclusion on the website. So what could travelers do? They could submit a blog of their own. So they could put a link to their blog. Okay? So the answer should be blog. Questions 8 to 13. Do the following statements agree with the information given in reading passage 1? The website www.newzealand.com aimed to provide ready-made itineraries and packages for travel companies and individual tourists. Okay? So it aimed to provide ready-made itineraries, packages for travel companies and individual tourists. Now at the beginning of para 6, the author refers to the aim of the website, which was set up to allow both individuals and travel organizations to create itineraries and travel packages to suit their needs and interests. Okay? So, when you say ready-made, here it says aim to provide ready-made itineraries and packages for travel companies and individual tourists, right? Now, when therefore the website wasn't designed to provide ready-made. Ready-made means it's readily available, right? Whereas it was designed for everyone to create their own one. It wasn't readily available. What the individuals or the travel companies had to do was create their own one. So therefore, the answer is going to be false, right? It was found that most visitors started searching on the website by geographical location. As many paragraphs discuss the website, finding the correct place in the passage is not easy. So you have to skim very quickly through. When you come to para 6, we find on the website, visitors can search for activities not solely by geographical location, but also by the particular nature of activity, right? 2 pieces of information are not given, right? We don't know if they started searching with that specific location. It could be either one. And the other thing is we don't know if most visitors did that. We know that the visitors did that, but did most of them do it? We don't really know. So therefore, the answer would be not given. Okay? Question number 10. According to research, 26% of visitor satisfaction is related to their accommodation. Okay? So research, 26% it was satisfaction and it was related to accommodation. Now, the percentages are only given in para 5 and 6, right? So it's not really difficult to scan the information. So if you go to para 6, research shows that activities are the key driver of visitor satisfaction, contributing 74% of visitor satisfaction, while transport and accommodation account for the remaining 26%. Okay, so the 26% refers to those who are satisfied with transport or their accommodation. It's not solely for accommodation. Okay, so it doesn't really stand alone for accommodation only, so therefore the statement is false. Question number 11. Visitors to New Zealand like to become more involved in the local culture. So visitors like to be more involved in local culture. We find the answer in para 6 again, right? And it states, it has also been found that visitors enjoy cultural activities most when they are interactive, such as visiting a Maori meeting ground to learn about the traditional Maori life. So yes, traditional local aspect, right? Like means enjoy, becoming more involved, attractive, right? Interactive. So therefore, answer is definitely going to be true. Okay? Question number 12. Visitors like staying in small hotels in New Zealand rather than in larger ones. So we're looking for the keyword hotels, which is not really mentioned. It says accommodation, but we don't really know if it's referring to the hotels mainly, right? In para 6, the smallest bed and breakfast is mentioned. Para 2 is also mentioned, but nothing referring to the specific information in question 12. Therefore, the answer would be not given. Question number 13. Many visitors feel it is unlikely that they will return to New Zealand after their visit. So visitors feel unlikely to return to New Zealand after their visit. In the final paragraph, we find, because of the long-haul flight, most visitors stay for a longer, average about 20 days, and want to see as much as the country as possible on what it is often seen as a once-in-a-lifetime visit. So do they want to kind of come back again? Not really. They would rather make it a one-time visit, right? So you would visit there once in a lifetime, because it usually takes a longer flight to reach New Zealand, right? So people visit there like only once and they stay for a longer period, so they don't really want to revisit New Zealand, okay? So I would say many visitors feel it unlikely that they will return to New Zealand. Yes, it's more like a once-in-a-lifetime visit. So I would say it is true. Passage 2. Why being bored is stimulating and useful too. Right? So reading passage 2 has 6 paragraphs A to F, and we need to match it against the given options, right? Para A. Now in this paragraph, the author introduces the subject of boredom, right? Saying, defining boredom so that it can be studied in the lab has proved difficult. Defining an object to be studied and then studying it in the laboratory lab are both the elements of the scientific approach, but there are problems. It is difficult, so the correct heading is problems with scientific approach to boredom. So I would take answer 4. Right? Paragraph B, question 15. Now in the first sentence of para B, the author states, By asking people about their experiences of boredom, Thomas Goitz and his team at the University of Konstanz in Germany have recently identified 5 distinct types: indifferent, calibrating, searching, reactant, and apathetic. Right? The system used by researchers to measure these types is then described. So here it's looking at classifying the feelings of boredom, clearly trying to put them into categories, 5 categories. So I would take that as number 6. Paragraph C. Now here, this is about the positive aspects of boredom. The findings of psychologist Sandy Mann are discussed. Mann has found that being bored makes us more creative. We're all afraid of being bored, right? So we all feel afraid when we're bored, right? But in actual fact, it can lead to all kinds of amazing things. She says, so the correct heading is the productive outcomes, because being bored doesn't really mean it's bad. She says it could lead to positive aspects. So the answer is number 1. Right, so moving on to the next question. Question 17, paragraph D. In contrast, psychologist John Eastwood considers that boredom is negative. So not the positive side. Now he is saying that this has a negative side, okay? So, in my view, by definition, boredom is an undesirable state. So the paragraph continues to talk. For Eastwood, the central feature of boredom is a failure to put our attention system into gear. Perhaps most worryingly, says Eastwood, repeatedly failing to engage attention can lead to a state where we don't know what to do anymore. And no longer do we care about it, right? So when we're looking at it, the most appropriate heading I feel is the potential danger arising from boredom, because it has negative impacts, right? And therefore the answer could be 5. Question number 18, paragraph E. Now this paragraph is about certain characteristics of personality and how these tend to be associated with boredom, right? So Eastwood's team think that boredom pronouns has been linked with a variety of traits. People who are motivated by pleasure seem to suffer particularly badly. Other personality traits, such as curiosity, are associated with a high boredom threshold. More evidence that boredom has determined effects comes from studies of people who are more or less prone to boredom, right? So a link has been made, therefore, between boredom and the people with certain characteristics, right? So people with curiosity, how their boredom level is, right? So I feel identifying those affected by boredom is the most appropriate heading, and that is going to be number 8. Paragraph F, question number 19. The author discusses psychologist Francoise's view, right? And he says our overconnected lifestyles might even be a new source of boredom. So we need less mental stimulation, not more. And perhaps we should leave our phones alone and use boredom to motivate us to engage with the world in a more meaningful way. Interesting. So this is a new explanation of one reason why we become bored and a cure for it. We should leave our phone aside. So I think a new explanation and a new cure for boredom, most appropriate answer would be number 3. Questions 20 to 23. Look at the following people and the list of ideas below. Match each person with the correct idea A to E. Okay? So we've got Peter Tuhi. We can quickly find this person's name in para A. So let's see what Tuhi told us. Tuhi compares boredom with disgust, which is an emotion that motivates us to stay away from certain situations. If disgust protects humans from infection, boredom may protect them from infectious social situations, right? So Tuhi's idea is that boredom may actually protect us from bad experiences. And therefore, I think the most appropriate answer is going to be E. Next one is Thomas Goitz. Now, Goitz is mentioned both in para B and in para E. So we already know from question 15 that para B was about classification of the types of boredom. Now, this matches the B, right? In the list of ideas, of course, there were 5 types, and the most damaging one is the reactant. It's explosive combination of high arousal and negative emotion, right? So, boredom is the worst. So, reactant boredom is the worst of all the 5 types of boredom because it is the most damaging one. So, therefore, the most appropriate answer would be B, right? Question 22. John Eastwood. Eastwood is mentioned in para D as well as para E. So starting to look for the answer in para D, we find a discussion of boredom as a failure to put our attention system into action. It says, this causes an inability to focus on anything, which makes time seem to go painfully slowly. What's more, your efforts to improve the situation can end up making you feel worse, right? So, I feel the most appropriate answer here is going to be D, right? Question number 23. Francoise swims Felder. Now, her name is mentioned in the last para. And she believes that in modern human society, there is a lot of overstimulation, but still a lot of problems finding meaning. So I feel our modern lifestyles, therefore, tend to stimulate us too much without enabling us to find meaning for what we do is most closely to answer A. Right, questions 24 to 26. Complete the summary and you have to write one word only from the passage for each answer. For John Eastwood, the central feature, right? So John Eastwood, central feature of boredom is that people cannot do something due to failure in what he calls attention system. So if you can remember, in the previous question, we had a look at this, right? So when we go to para D, for Eastwood, the central failure of boredom is the failure to put our attention system into gear. This causes the inability to focus on anything. So inability means we cannot do it. So what can't we do? Focus. So cannot focus. Answer is focus. Question 25. His team suggests that those for whom is an important aim in life may have problems in coping with boredom, right? So he has a suggestion that those for whom blank is an important aim in life have problems coping with boredom. Again, I remember reading this sentence for you, but go to para E. When we use the keywords, we'll definitely end up there. Skimming, scanning, that's all I'm using throughout the reading paper. Sometimes if they're short paras, maybe some intensive reading, but basically skimming and scanning, right? In para E, it stated, boredom has been linked with a variety of traits. People who are motivated by pleasure seem to suffer particularly badly, okay? So they have problems with coping with boredom when people who are affected or motivated by pleasure. So his team suggests that those for whom pleasure is an important aim because they are motivated, that is their main aim, pleasure, then they have a problem with coping with boredom, right? 26. Whereas those who have characteristic of can generally cope with it, right? So those who have a characteristic of something can generally cope with it. Now it's in the next sentence, right? So we learn about the people who can cope well with boredom. One personality trait such as curiosity are associated with high boredom threshold. High boredom threshold means they can handle boredom really well. Associated means it is linked with them, right? So when they have high curiosity, they can also handle boredom really well, okay? So curiosity should be the trait. Questions number 27 to 31 is in passage 3, artificial artists. Choose the correct letter A, B, C or D. What is the writer suggesting about computer-produced works in the first para? So what is he suggesting about computer-produced works? Now, if you go to para 1, the writer tells us about how successful works of art have been, which have been produced using the computer. It states, classical music by an artificial composer has had audiences enraptured. Artworks painted by a robot have sold for thousands of dollars and being hung in prestigious galleries, right? And software has been built which creates art that could not have been imagined by a programmer. So both of these indicate that the answer is B, why a great deal of progress has been attained in this field. So not just what people draw, right? But basically they draw amazing, computer robots draw amazingly nice pictures which are now there hung in prestigious galleries, right? And this could have not been, imagined even by a programmer, that kind of piece of art. So most appropriate answer is going to be B. Question number 28. According to Gerard Wiggins, why are many people worried about computer art? Okay, now this is a name, right? So why are they worried about this computer art? Now looking for the keywords, especially the name, right? We can go to para 2. If creative acts can be translated into a computer code, this means that human creativity is no longer a special quality of a human being. Computers can do the same thing. It's scary. It scares a lot of people. They are worried that it is taking something special away from what it means to the human. In other words, when computer art performs the same creativity acts as humans, then people are worried that it undermines a fundamental human quality. Because we have special qualities as humans, and then it's kind of a question as to, whoa, robots can do the same thing, and do we actually have that quality? So it's a question mark. So the most appropriate answer is C. Question 29. What is a key difference between Aaron and the painting fool? Aaron is mentioned in para 3 and 4. Now, if you go to para 3, the writer explains what Aaron is and what it can do. It is still little more than a tool to realize the programmer's own creative ideas. In para 4, Aaron is compared with the painting fool. Unlike earlier artists, such as Aaron, the painting fool only needs minimal direction and can come up with its own concepts by going online for material. Right? So the difference is that Aaron only follows the programmer's ideas, whereas the painting fool, so as a result, we are told that the painting fool is beginning to develop its own imagination. So the difference is that Aaron actually follows the programmer's ideas, while the painting fool can create its own ideas independently, right? So therefore, the most appropriate answer is going to be C. Question 30. What point does Simon Colton make in the 4th para? Okay, so point Simon Colton, 4th para. If you go to para 4, Colton's ideas on computer-produced art are presented. And he says, the software runs its own web searches and trawls through social media sites. It is now beginning to display a kind of imagination too, creating pictures from scratch. While some people might say they have a mechanical look, Colton argues that such reactions arise from people's double standards towards software-produced and human-produced art. Right? If people have double standards, they have moral principles which are unfair because they judge human art in one way and the computer-produced art in a different way, right? So in other words, people tend to judge computer art and human art according to a different criteria. That's why it says they have double standards. They don't measure it in the same way, so therefore the answer is D. Question number 31. The writer refers to the paintings of a chair as an example of computer art which, right? So paintings, chair, computer art. What does he refer it to? Now this can be a very tricky question because the keywords aren't very prominent. So be careful, you will end up with the wrong answer. The painting fool's paintings of a chair are discussed at the end of para 4. Here, the writer refers to software bugs and a technical glitch. However, these problems do not necessarily have bad results. In the case of the chair paintings, some of the painting fool's paintings of a chair came out in black and white, thanks to a technical glitch, right? So this gives like a ghost-like quality piece of work. Now these technical problems resulted in paintings of a chair which had unexpected and eerie the ghost-like quality. In other words, they had a striking effect on people who saw them, right? So the paintings produced by computer art, they achieved a particularly striking effect. So therefore, the answer is going to be A. Questions number 32 to 37. Complete each sentence with the correct ending, which you have to get from A to G, right? Simon Colton says it is important to consider the long-term view when doing what? Okay. At the beginning of para 5, we find a statement that researchers like Colton don't believe it is right to measure machine creativity directly to that of humans who have had millennia to develop our skills. So this refers to the creativity, okay, of computers and humans, how important it is to consider the element of time, right? So therefore, long term is millennia. So the answer would be D. 33. David Cope's EMI software surprised people by what? Right? So David Cope's EMI software surprised people by what? So if you come to para 5, David Cope and his EMI program are mentioned. His software created, means generated, music in the style of various classical composers. Then people's reactions are described. Audiences were moved to tears. Moved to tears means they were surprised by tears, right? And EMI even fooled classical music experts into thinking they were hearing genuine Bach. Thus, people were not able to distinguish the work of a famous human classical composer and the work of an EMI program. So they couldn't really differentiate it. The EMI program generated work that was virtually indistinguishable. That means you can't separate it from that of humans. So the program actually created something which was so close to humans that they could not even tell the difference between the two, right? So the most appropriate answer is going to be A. Question number 34. Gerard Wiggins criticized Cope for not. Okay, so Wiggins criticized Cope for what? We find Wiggins criticized Cope in para 5. Some, such as Wiggins, have blasted Cope's work as pseudoscience and condemned him for his deliberately vague explanation of how the software worked. Criticize means he condemned, he blasted, okay? So Wiggins says that Cope did not clearly explain how the software really worked. So the most appropriate answer is going to be E. 35. Douglas Hofstadter claimed that EMI was, right? So Douglas Hofstadter claimed EMI was. Now here the answer can be found in para 5, right? Douglas Hofstadter of the Indiana University said that EMI created replicas which rely completely on the original artist's creative impulses. Thus, EMI made copies producing work entirely depending on the imagination of its original creator. So therefore, the most appropriate answer is going to be C. Question number 36. Audiences who had listened to EMI's music became angry after what? Right? So audiences, EMI's music became angry. At the end of para 5, the author states, when audiences found out the truth, they were often outraged with Cope, and one music lover even tried to punch him. So when they first listened to EMI's music, people did not know that it had been produced by a computer, and when they found out the truth that it was really a computer program, they were really angry. Outrage means angry, so therefore the answer is G. The participants in David Moffat's study had to assess music without what? Okay, so participant David Moffat's study had to assess music without what? Now David Moffat is in para 6. His study is described. The participants weren't told beforehand whether the tunes were composed by humans or computers, but when asked to guess and then rate how much they liked each one. So listening to these different pieces of music, participants in the study did not know if they were the work of the humans or the software, and then later they had to kind of give a rating. So the most appropriate answer is going to be B. Questions 38 to 40. Do the following statements agree with the claims of the writer in reading passage 3? So you have to tell if it's yes, no, or not given. Question number 38. Moffat's research may help explain people's reaction to EMI, right? So Moffat's research explain reactions to EMI. At the beginning of para 6, the writer asks, why did so many people love the music, yet recoil when they discovered how it was composed? That was the problem. They loved the music, but why were they so angry when they found out that it was not the composer but the software? We then learned that Moffat's study helps to provide an answer to this question. A study by computer scientist David Moffat of Glasgow, Caledonian University provides a clue. Thus, people's reaction to music composed by a computer required some explanation, right? So, Moffat's research may help explain people's reaction, yes, okay? People loved the music, right? Their reaction was to love the music or to recoil. So, the study did provide a clue actually, and therefore the answer is yes. Question number 39. The non-experts in Moffat's study all responded in a predictable way, right? So the non-experts in Moffat's study, they reacted in a very predictable manner. Moffat asked both experts and non-experts to take part in his study by listening to 6 pieces of music. Now this is there in para 6. The writer tells us that people who thought the composer was a computer tended to dislike the piece more than those who believed it was human. This was true even among the experts, who might have been expected to be more objective in their analysis. It doesn't really talk about the non-experts, right? Were they predictable or not? It doesn't really talk about it, right? So the writer was surprised when the experts reacted in the same way as the non-experts, but the non-experts are really not mentioned here, right? So we don't know if they all responded in a predictable manner, not really clear. So the answer would be not given. And the last question, question 40. Justin Kruger's findings cast doubt on Paul Bloom's theory about people's prejudice towards computer art. Okay, so Justin Kruger's doubt, Bloom, prejudice. Now, Paul Bloom and Justin Kruger are mentioned in the final paragraph. Where does this prejudice come from, right? Paul Bloom of Yale University has a suggestion. He reckons part of the pleasure we get from art stems from the creative process behind the work. Meanwhile, experiments by Justin Kruger of New York University have shown that people's enjoyment of an artwork increases if they think more time and effort was needed to create it. Okay? So They both have theories about why people might be prejudiced against computer art. So Bloom believes that people get pleasure partly from appreciating the creative process, whereas Kruger thinks that people enjoy artwork more if they think that there's a lot of time and effort put into the creating process. So Kruger's findings do not contradict Bloom's theories. The creative process can be appreciated because humans have spent time and effort. So here in the question says cast a doubt. It doesn't cast any doubt. It's quite clear that they both believe on similar fact. So the answer would be no. Right, so with that, I think we have come to the end of the discussion, right? So we were looking at Cambridge Book 13, Test 1, reading answers for the academic IELTS candidates.